Hello everyone. Sorry I've been away for a while, but I'm back today with a speed sketch, and it's a little bit longer than the first speed sketch. I think in all this was about an hour sketch. This is something I did in between paintings while I was waiting for the client to give me the prompt to do the next painting in a series of paintings. Sometimes it's nice to get a little bit of variety just to keep the interest peaked in painting. I find that whenever I'm doing paintings for someone else for a long time, and that's all the work that I'm doing is just paintings for a client or someone else, I can get sort of bored of it. So I like to do my own stuff anytime I get a chance in between commissions. So as you can see, a lot like my other paintings, I'm starting with just blocking things in. I'm not too sure where I'm going with this painting, and that's how a lot of my paintings go, especially when I'm trying to just relax and have fun in between commissions and whatnot. So I'm just laying down some colors. I know that I want this place to be foggy and a little bit misty, maybe a little bit gloomy, but not gloomy in the sense that it gives you like a sad sort of impression, but gloomy as in the lighting is pretty subdued and there's a lot of fog. There's not a lot of direct sunlight. I tend to do, I think my comfort zone is very strong sunlight. So I did a little bit of contrast adjustment there. Basically all I did was use a level adjuster and increase the contrast. I like to use that more than the contrast. There's a contrast adjuster in Photoshop. I find that the level adjuster gives you a little bit more control. So I just thought it could use a little bit more contrast. And so here I skipped ahead a little bit. And the reason why I did that is because I thought that the painting in between that step and this step, it's a lot of the same thing. And once you get to the point where you can sort of rough things out, you basically just keep working on it until you get to this stage. And I really wanted to show the beginning stage and the ending stage, because I think in the process of creating a painting, one of the things that I had a lot of trouble with was first to learn to rough things in and to bring your vision to the canvas in a quick way that can basically just get it down on the canvas so that you can develop on it, because I think it's very rare and very few painters know exactly what their painting is going to be like when they start. And so the first step is to really get down your vision quickly on the canvas and be able to make it so that it stays true to your vision. And then after you're able to do that, I think the steps in between are not as difficult because you already have the painting set. And then learning your finishing technique to polish it up a little bit more is a little bit of a challenge. I think just to figure out how to refine the light and how to really give the painting that final level of polish is something that you kind of have to learn on its own. It's completely apart from just the rough-in stage. So here I'm doing that, and I'm trying to keep that kind of gloomy feel, but I have these saturated colors and these bright spots of light that I need to address because in a gloomy or in a foggy, very subdued lighting sort of scenario, you wouldn't get those very saturated green yellows, and it wouldn't look like there's a strong light like it does now. And so in a little bit you'll see me address that and try to dial it back a little bit. It's really important to try to not let it get out of hand, and it doesn't necessarily make the painting any worse if this was a scene that was a little bit more strongly lit, but it's not what I'm going for. And that's another thing, is that it's important, as I found as an illustrator, and something that kind of takes much longer to learn, is that you, just because an image is good doesn't it doesn't necessarily suit something. So like as a professional artist, it's important not to just settle for an image because it's good, but you need to understand that the image has to be suitable for the purpose. And if you're working for someone, you see here me getting some textures here, but yeah, I just Googled, and then I put it on soft light, the layer setting soft light, and then because I didn't want to spend time sort of painting in the details of the foreground. That's kind of boring for me. But anyway, going back to the thing about when you're working for someone, you can't just create a painting that's good. You have to create a painting that suits what they're asking you to paint for them. And yeah, so you have to learn to be able to reproduce results in a certain way, and that comes with time and experience, and just furthering your visual library. And yeah, so I've dialed back the light a little bit now. I'm trying to get these more realistic colors, but still not make it too drab and too desaturated. Realistic colors doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be desaturated. Oftentimes oversaturation will make it look less realistic, but it's really about how you combine the colors, and the color combinations are more important to making it realistic than the level of saturation itself, within reason, of course. It can't be too saturated, but for example, you probably are not going to have, in a natural scene anyway, you're probably not going to have very saturated cools and very saturated warms. You're likely going to have maybe if you have saturated warms, your cools will be a little bit more desaturated cools. So if you have these very saturated reds and oranges and yellows, you're probably not going to have extremely saturated blues. Your shadows will probably be a pretty desaturated blue. That's if you're looking to achieve a realistic style. So now the painting is basically done. I'm just filling in the little details. There's not too much left to do in this painting. As a personal piece, I felt that it was okay to sort of leave it sort of in this state and not add anything much more. I think if I was doing this for someone else, I would put in a more... I think if I was doing this for someone else, I would put in a stronger interest point. Although I guess this would be okay as a piece of concept art also, if it was just sort of like an idea pitch for a possible area, I guess. And then likely you'd probably go in after and add maybe some human elements to add interest to it, or something that's not just a landscape, some things for the player to interact with. So yeah, just finishing things up. Yeah, as far as the finishing technique goes, it's for me, a lot of times it's making sure that the painting is what I want it to be, because it can be pretty easy to lose your original purpose as you paint. And sometimes as you paint, you see new things and you see things that might look nice, and it can be tempting to try to add those in, but sometimes your original intention can get lost, and it's much illustrating is so much more than just creating a nice image. It's that you have to be able to produce a variety of different types of images, and you have to be able to do that on cue. You have to have the skill to produce that whenever you want. So it's really good practice to make sure that you're not painting the same thing, you're not doing the sort of same subjects and the same moods, because you can't be an illustrator and only do one thing. It's going to be really hard to get work, and anyone who is looking for an illustrator, they really appreciate that you are able to do a variety of things. I'm adding in some clouds, and that'll help with the subdued mood. I had the intention of putting these clouds in very early on, and I kept that in mind when I was doing the lighting below. So I wasn't just doing a subdued sort of. I wasn't making the ground very softly lit, just because I had this intention in mind that the clouds would be covering most of the light, and that there would be ambient light. There'd be a good amount of ambient light all over, but no really strong places where light will just hit and really light up any specific part. So I'm darkening the sky a little. I want there to be somewhat of areas, so I'm putting little open spots in the clouds to suggest that there are spots where light is coming through and is a little bit stronger. And you can see in the center there, there is a spot that is a little bit brighter, but it's not a really strong hit of light. And the idea is that if I have these spots in the background, in the clouds, that suggest there's light coming through, then it can be assumed that there's a gap in the sky where light is coming through and hitting that kind of center area at the base of those rocks there in the midground. So those sort of thinking about those sort of things will unify the piece, and it won't make your choices look arbitrary. It'll make your whole painting come together a little bit better, and that really helps establish the mood. So adding in a little character there, but I thought it was sort of ridiculous, so I erased that later. Yeah, so I'm just messing with the saturation, messing with the atmosphere, trying to get a good read on the space of the piece. This isn't a very elaborate painting. These sort of paintings are probably the easiest to do, for me at least, for an environmental painter, because you can't really mess up. It's pretty relaxing to do, and that's exactly why I would do these sort of paintings between commissions or between projects now and then. That's about it. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll be uploading more soon, and I won't be having such long breaks between videos from now. I've been busy with a few things, but my schedule's a lot more open now, so hopefully I'll be able to put out more videos. Okay, thanks.